So in this video, we're going to go over some frequently asked questions that everybody has about the scans and some best practices as well. So in this first screen here, you see what is the vital scan. So I'm going to first go over the fact that in order to get this scan produced, you do have to, of course, register yourself or register your friend, somebody in your family, your client, and you do that on the first main home screen, and you can find your picture at the top after you log in, and you can hit then new client or existing client. Existing are the people that you have entered in already, and a new client is, of course, exactly what it sounds, and you will need some of their personal information. So assuming that you have done your first scan and you've then sent yourself the report, then the vital scan is laid out in this configuration. So here we have the current scan, and here we have the previous scan. Now, if this is your first time doing the scan for yourself or for somebody else, what you would see after you hit your scan button, if you were to then look at the report, the only thing that you would see is one column, just a current scan, because you've only done the scan, correct? Then, if you were to hit the Optimize Frequencies button, which is the therapeutic feature, so you can basically work on all these different areas of your body, essentially, therapeutically, and then you were to hit the Report button after you hit the Optimize Frequencies button, this second column over here, the previous scan, would then be revealed to you. So again, you have two options here. You can always just run a scan and not do anything therapeutic. If you did choose to run the therapeutic optimized frequencies, you would then have two columns here. So in this case, what you're looking at is when I had done a scan and I had done an optimize frequencies. So right here, what that means is essentially this was when I had done the scan the first time. It then gives me all these different values, which I'll go over in a second. And then after the optimize frequencies is run, the therapy part, it then shows me what has changed, okay? What has changed in this current scan here. That's what that means. So this is when you do your first scan, you optimize, and then this is after optimization, okay? That's what that column means. So as you can see, when we're just kind of just basically screening and scrolling down, we see a bunch of reds over here, and we see a lot more greens over here. This is kind of what we're hoping to see, but in general, there's a lot of positive changes, and there's less reds in this column. Okay, a lot of reds here. You don't see them here. You get the idea. So we'll scroll back to the top here. What is in range and out of range? So depending on the test that is run, so this is for blood, sometimes what these two columns, in range and out of range, sometimes those values or assessment terms actually change. So in this case, what this means is, I'll give you an example, that my triglyceride levels, if we're just looking at right here, those are in range. And that's exactly what it sounds like. If these were to say that they were out of range, then that would be reflective of, again, something metabolic going on, and my triglyceride levels, again, being out of range. Out of range of what? Well, on this test, what we don't show you, like you might see in other chemistry lab tests, is an average range of what's considered normal or healthy. So there's a couple ways you can go about getting that information. If you send this to one of your health practitioners and they have the training, they could tell you what the average normal healthy range is for some of these values. You can also email off to our clinic, and you can pay for a really comprehensive report sent back that explains all of this. You can also get on Google, and you can always quickly just type in, hey, what is a normal triglyceride level? And then you can see the range. So if you're out of range, then you know you just, again, don't fit whatever in that value parameter, that measurement that you see on Google. So you can always look up a lot of these things. These are very traditional, well-known sort of blood panels. So let's scroll down a little bit here. I'm going to see if we can find another section here. Okay, so that's on the old tests. Okay, so basically out of range and in range applies to all of these various different sections. So again, I'll just give you another one here. So in this case, of the omega-3 levels in my body, metabolically, I would be out of range. So that would simply mean that I'm not metabolizing enough alpha-linolenic acid from my diet. That's all that means. So my values would be out of range. If we're talking about nutrients, then out of range could mean that basically we are deficient. So I may not be getting enough alpha-linolenic acid. Okay, so you can Google around again and just say, well, what kinds of foods would contain a lot of ALA or alpha-linolenic acid? And one example would be like flax seeds. So adding more flax seeds into the diet for a couple weeks, I could then do another scan in a couple weeks, give my body a chance to metabolize and raise my ALA levels. And in that scan, we would hope that we would see on the first scan, we would hope that we'd actually see that it was in range again. Same goes for DHA, EPA. These are always green for me because I'm usually taking a fermented cod liver oil, which is really good quality. So I'm usually pretty good on omega-3s. So that would be an example of like, if you were deficient in this, you could say, oh, my DHA is out of range, I'm deficient. What foods, what supplements would help with that? And I would like to mention to you that in the pro level version, there's a couple things. One is that you can actually scan in different supplements that you may have, and it can guide you on what you may need to take. So besides just looking at your vital report here, if we're talking about nutrients for a second, and even some other conditions as well, it will actually give you the supplemental recommendations to actually assist you with some of these values or areas in your body that may need more support. So that is coming with the Pro version in a very close period of time, in just a few weeks. And we will also be partnering probably with a couple big companies and have some already full scanned lines coming in. And I'll give you an example. So if one of the supplement lines we had inputted had something for omega-3s, and that supplement popped up for you, you obviously don't need to buy that exact product. You can go out and try to find your own omega-3, but again, you have a couple ways of doing it, scanning it in yourself, and then we may actually do some of that for you and offer that in an update to the pro level package. And let me just move down here too. I just want to give you a few more suggestions for out of range. So let's see. So colon peristalsis function. Okay. So in this case, that says that on that first scan, it's out of range. If you don't know what that word means, you can just easily Google that. That just simply means what your transit time of the food that you eat. How long does it actually take your body to actually move that food through your intestines? And normally there's an ideal pace, a period of time for that to happen. If it's sluggish and slow, that can be caused by different things. Again, you could just simply ask your practitioner. You could say, hey, what is having a colon peristalsis function? I did a test and it says it was out of range. So remember, out of range, you can also look at that as negative. That might be easier for you to think about that as you look at these values. I'm having something negative going on with my colon peristalsis function. Or I'm having something negative happening with my colon absorption. Well, if you just think about it logically, well, if my colon absorption was ideal or fully positive, that would mean that I was absorbing all of the nutrients I need very effectively. If there was something negative going on there, or out of range, then that would potentially mean that I'm not absorbing nutrients very well from my colon. Okay, so does that kind of make a little bit more logical sense in terms of how you would apply that? Same things down here. Cortisol, inflammation markers, cytokine activity, I'm going to do a little video on that. That basically is released by your immune system during traumas and injuries and stresses, infections, things like that. If that's elevated, and elevated would mean your cytokines, there's something negative going on. If that was red, that would mean that potentially you're producing too much cytokines, and the healing therapy of what needs to happen in your body is not happening. So you just keep on producing way too much, and your inflammation is too high. Okay, so again, that still might be a lot for some of you out there that don't have too much of a health background. You can always ask a practitioner. You can send away for reports. When you email these reports to yourself, we will have a function in the very near future, next couple weeks, where you can send it off to, again, a clinic, and they can send you back something that will help you read and understand your full report and what you should pay attention to. And again, most practitioners would understand a lot of this stuff as well if you just sent them these documents. And you can also just Google too. You can Google, hey, what if my cytokine activity is out of range? What does that mean, right? So that's kind of how you got to approach this. You definitely can use Google to your own benefit. And most of this stuff is pretty straightforward when you kind of read the description. Now, if again, we're not just going to, with all the scans, AO Scan Mobile also is able to take all of this information, and as you do other scans, the other kinds, it will actually take a lot of these values and then cross-apply them to some of the other scans in order to come up with a more comprehensive assessment. In the Pro level version, we have something called the Intelligence Scan, and the Intelligence Scan is where basically, and you'll see a video on this very soon in the near future, where you can basically take all these different databases of findings about your health, and you can actually cross-compare all of them. It automatically will do that for you, and you can kind of get to the root of things. Like, for example, how is cholesterol? How is circulating immune complex? How are these different values potentially involved with other things going on in your body? Maybe your cardiovascular system, maybe it's your heart. So obviously not everybody has the knowledge on understanding that. So with the intelligence scan, it can help pull these things together with other information, and it can give you more of a clear picture of how these things are interrelated. You could kind of look at it more as like an assessment that is coming towards giving you a clear picture of the causal factors behind what's going on with you, or maybe behind your symptoms. So that's a really helpful function that is, again, coming pretty soon. It just allows you to do deeper detective work and make more clear conclusions as well. So there's a lot you can learn from these scans, but there's also a lot when you roll them all together that is even clearer. So I'm going to pop over to some of my other popular questions. So let's see here. Do I need to rescan after the optimize? So some people get a little confused and they wonder, well, if I scan, right, and I get to see my first values after my first initial scan, and then I did my optimize frequencies, right? I did my actual therapeutic thing with actually playing the tones and receiving the other types of energies. Do I need, after the therapy, do I need to actually rescan again? And the answer is no, you do not. So it's actually a really good question. So let me explain it to you this way. So when you do your first scan, that would appear over here. Okay? Now some are positive, some are negative, some in range, out of range. After I did my therapy, remember it shifted over here. Some of these reds turned green. This red right here, whatever is going on here with the blood, with that type of cholesterol, that did not change right there, okay? And I believe the LDL is the unhealthy type of cholesterol. There's good cholesterol and quote-unquote bad cholesterol. So something's going on there. That didn't change. So what happens when you do your optimize is that when you're doing your optimized therapy frequencies, it's actually not just transmitting the therapeutic frequencies, it's also still receiving and recording if any of these parameters in your body are changing and then it actually calculates what that was. So let me give you an example. For HDL up here, on the first scan, it was positive. Now, it just automatically will transfer and include that positive value in the final report because it was already positive to begin with. There's nothing to change there. So it automatically will import over the positive values that were positive on the last report. And then for negatives, here's a negative that actually shifted over to a positive. So in this case right here, this actually recorded in that as it actually sent the right vibrational and electromagnetic frequencies to the body through the nervous system, through the brain, and this then actually impacted the blood paramagnetically, then basically it was able to read and assess that this aspect of the cholesterol came into resonance with the specific frequencies that were found in the database of AOScan Mobile. So this value came into resonance and was able to tune up into a normalized range of function according to what the brain has monitored with this value in the blood and what the brain then had transmitted back to our device. And we have an algorithm that then compares that value that the brain is saying back to us or to our technology, and we see how it compares. What is it comparing it with? It's comparing it with a huge amount of test subjects in the past where we actually recorded what would be the perfect ideal range and frequency range for this value in the human body. So again, all these values here are always comparing to what is considered most ideal in a large amount of other people that were part of the research project spanning many decades. So this value got tuned up, and then it was recorded that it had normalized, and so it's assigned a green in-range value. This one over here, as it was trying to tune this value and shift it, the LDL, it did not make it. So it records that it unfortunately was not able to shift. It's kind of vibrational energy signature. So that stays as is. So moving forward, one thing that I think is helpful is as you look at your reports, you kind of want to sometimes take notes and pay attention to values that are very stubborn, that they just don't seem to change. If I didn't see this LDL change after running optimized therapeutic frequencies for, I don't know, let's say a few weeks, especially a few months, I would definitely want to take a closer look at this. And we can, of course, do that with the intelligence scan. We can say, well, is this correlated with something else going on in my body? What is that other part of my body that's involved? Is it maybe an organ? Is it stress? What is it? Is it something in my nervous system? And if we can kind of pinpoint that, we can therapeutically work on it with some of the other programs, especially in Pro. And if all that still isn't shifting this value, I think that that's the important time where you share some of this information with the practitioner you're working with, and you say, hey, my bad cholesterol is just really struggling. I think it might be connected with something going on in my liver based on these values. Could you take a closer look? Could you help me with maybe some other therapeutic programs? So we're certainly not claiming that AOScan Mobile is going to fix all of this for everybody all the time. Of course not. What we are saying is that definitely use our therapeutic programs. But of course, always, if you really see some dysfunction, some imbalance, metabolically, homeostatically, that you certainly seek out other support, other modalities. And what's really exciting about if you do seek out other modalities, like let's say you went to go do a liver cleanse with a practitioner, you did some kind of protocol, or you did it on your own, then we would hope to see that there would be some progress in that area. So you can do your protocol, and then after you've finished with it, you can of course scan yourself And so maybe, for example, you might want to then take a look at the liver on the comprehensive, for example. You say, you know what, I just did this whole liver gallbladder flush. I'd like to take a look at all these different structures in my liver and see if any of these values have changed. I'm not going to get into the comprehensive reports right now, but I just kind of wanted to give you an idea. You may want to go down to wherever the liver is, coming up here, bear with me. Liver is usually found, by the way, under detoxification, although the liver is actually involved with a vast majority metabolically of all these different areas of your body. But here's liver and gallbladder function. So let's say you did some supplements or some liver gallbladder function or protocol working with yourself or a practitioner. We would like to see some of those values that are maybe more stubborn actually change. So what's great is you can actually feel confident and more just more confident about what you're doing and get clear information. The challenge that I see in the health field is one of the many challenges for people getting better is that they do a lot of different supplements or protocols or work with niche practitioners, and sometimes there's not always the clearest tracking to know exactly if something is working or not working. So you can end up spending a lot of money, for example. Like, I'll give you an example. Quicksilver Scientifics has a really good detox kit for the liver that is, I think, really effective, but it is a little costly for some people. So some people might be willing to invest in that. And if they did do that, they should expect to see some of these values change in here, according to Quicksilver Scientific's claims about being effective for this kind of thing here. Now, if you did that full kit for 30 days or whatever, and you just didn't see any of your values change at all, we would have to wonder two things. Is that supplement line or that protocol or kit really the best thing, or is there something better for you? Or is there something else that is a deeper issue in your body that's preventing you from actually getting progress here? So let me just clarify something. If you want to go use some other therapeutic tool or approach or protocol in order to work on your health, one suggestion, it's up to you, but there's two ways you can go about doing scans. Is one thing is that if you wanted to actually know how effective, how well some other thing that you're doing is going, then you would just want to do scans, assessments, to actually track the progress over time. If you also ran and optimized frequencies, right, therapy with our device, with our tool, then what that would do is that would shift some of these values, but then you would never really know if our device, what was responsible for the benefits or the changes you were seeing. Was it our device therapeutic programs that were being run, or was it your protocol, your other thing that you were doing? You see what I mean? So it just kind of depends on how you want to use this. And then some people just say, you know what, I'm confident with the other protocol and modality or practitioner I'm working with. I'm going to be doing their thing, and then I'm also still going to be optimizing as well. And I'm just going to see if the combination of everything I'm doing will be able to shift everything. And that's fine too. At least you have the luxury, the benefits of choosing, with this amazing detailed program. So, and it would make a side note that what you're looking at right here, there is currently no other bioenergetic sort of assessment tool out there right now that gives this level of detail. And I also would add to you that if you're thinking like, this is all fascinating, but I'm also really concerned about emotions and the mind and subtle energies that may be influencing me from my environment. Again, we actually do have scans and we have therapeutic approaches for that as well. So this is not just something that's like super detailed on the physiological. We can cross-reference into the emotional and mental as well, and like purely energetic. And the reason we can do that is actually this is a very energetic tool in terms of how it works, and that will be covered in another video. So let's go back to my questions here. How often do I need to scan and optimize? This is a really good question. So the answer is as often as you want, of course, but what we usually recommend if you own the device and you have the luxury of using it every day, certainly use it every day. The body is changing every single day, every single moment. So you can kind of look at this as like helping to guide the body energetically in terms of moving towards more homeostasis, more balance, basically, helping the immune system to untangle a lot of chaos and imbalances. So you kind of want to keep on, it's like training wheels. You're trying to kind of, on a frequency level and a communication level in your body, keep things more in order and harmony. So morning and evening, at the beginning of the day, end of the day is good. I also have found some value in doing it in the middle of the day as well. And that, and I basically added in the middle of the day session after doing the morning and night sessions for a few weeks, just to see if I saw some of these values change more, just to see if I felt different or improved. So it's up to you. You can do scans and therapy about every hour. If you try to do it sooner than 60 minutes, it will actually block you or prevent you from doing that. And it's not necessarily because it would harm you, it's just that it's unneeded, that the body, this is information signaling medicine, and medicine is not necessarily the right term because this is not a medical device, but this is information-based signaling therapy. And so what that means is that when you send some of these frequency signals into the body, it can send a cascade of communication intracellular throughout your body, throughout your organs, your neuroendocrine system, and that can create a lasting shift that can go on for hours and hours and hours, and even days, just after that one transmission or one session of optimization. So from that standpoint, your body is not going to change overnight. So to do another scan and therapy, sooner than 60 minutes is not that helpful. If you wanted to do some other modality, like let's say you wanted to do a PEMF session, or you wanted to do a sauna session, or you were doing some other type of acupuncture or something else, and you wanted to check the progress of that and see how that went for you, 20 minutes later or 30 minutes later, you basically have to wait, is the answer, in order to do another scan that soon. So you have to wait 60 minutes. We may possibly change that, where you can at least do a scan sooner. So for people or practitioners in that situation where you just kind of need to track something soon that doesn't last that long, then at least you have that option. So let's see here. Moving on to the next question here. If the value changes to green, is that a permanent change? So, if we saw my cholesterol level, for example, or if we saw my total cholesterol move from negative, out of range, to positive, does that mean that my total cholesterol level is going to stay in that healthy, normal range every single day forever? No, it does not. And you would never really see that happen anyways with almost any modality that you did out there. Your body is always needing different things and always changing. And a lot of these things that we have going on in our body were created from many, many, many years of just living in the world. So a lot of these things don't change overnight. So, could you get yourself to a point where you're working with this technology, working with other modalities and protocols and, things in your lifestyle, would you be able to get yourself back into range and it maybe stays there? The body can maintain that for years? Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely get yourself there, and you can use this as a tool to help you. But in and of itself, just one session or two sessions, we have no idea how many sessions you would actually need. And again, it's not just completely dependent on AOScan Mobile. There's a lot of other variables and factors that can influence that. So like if you're eating cheeseburgers every single day and you have a metabolic disorder, it might move this into the positive, but obviously you'd be doing things that were countering this effect too. So that may only last you an hour. It may last you all day, maybe all week. It depends on the status of your health and a lot of different variables on how your body can maintain the positive shift in balance, if that makes sense. So how would I use the scans to track my progress? We covered that. Accuracy recommendations. So all these scans actually can be fairly accurate with just using your device in close proximity to you, and ideally closest proximity possible. There is something built into it that is a little difficult to explain for the scope of this video, where we get into physics, biophysics, in terms of how it can be fairly accurate that way. I actually have spoken to a lot of people that didn't realize that using the headset, the bone conduction transducer headset plugged into the device, actually can improve accuracy, and also the therapeutic effect of the optimize frequencies function and some of the other therapeutic programs like in the Cepheid, things like that. So, funny enough, they were doing pretty well without the headset, but there is something very special about how that headset actually works, which you will see in a video that I'll be putting out today or tomorrow. Which basically, you can just check back here in your back office. So we definitely do recommend that you use the headset. We do have practitioners that are, or just anybody, working with people remotely anywhere in the world. And sometimes they will actually ship them or have them purchase the headset off of their store page at AOScan Mobile. And basically what they would then do if they were doing remote work is they would have the person on the other end take the headset and they would plug that headset into their cell phone. Okay, and now that cell phone is connected on the same bandwidth of signals that the tablet or the mobile device of AOScan is also connecting through. And that also takes a lot to really help you understand the science of that, of what's going on there with the signals and the bands of 3G and 4G, and also the additional levels of energy that are kind of, let's just say, transmitting through that as a carrier wave. So there is science there if you do want to understand that, but if you don't really care at all, that's fine too. You can just, of course, use the device and enjoy using it. So we do recommend the headset. It does improve accuracy and the therapeutic efficacy. All right. And I would actually mention one other thing, is that our technology is actually unique to other types of assessment tools out there or therapeutic tools in the frequency energy space, where, and you'll find this often with ones where they have like electrodes that are connected or like little metal things that you have to hold on to. Those types of brands of equipment that I've looked into, when you get into something that is more electrodermal in nature, in terms of running a current through the body, usually through the palms or the wrists, things like that, those are actually more prone to interference by other energies and frequencies. So, and there is some other even challenges as well with accuracy as well. Like I'll give you one example. If you all heard of a lie detector test, and you know that lie detector tests aren't always accurate. There's actually different things that can interfere with the values. So there's a lot more to it, but our technology, the way it actually works, which is kind of working on a different band of energy. There's no kind of microcurrent involved or anything like that. It's actually impossible for there to be interference by crossing your legs or holding another type of device that's emitting electromagnetic energy, or depending if you're really stressed, there's almost nothing that can interfere with it. So the accuracy overall is superior to a lot of other equipment out there because of the way that it's actually doing the assessment and pulling the data and information. And also the algorithms that we use that can actually filter out certain interference patterns, basically, which also includes electrosmog, and I'll cover that in a different video. And by electrosmog, I mean like frequencies that might be harmful to you that are in your environment. So let's see, we already covered how to understand reports. I already mentioned a little bit about the intelligence scan. And I think that actually covers it. I did want to show the comprehensive report right here. because these are the other values that are a little bit different than the vital scan. So how do you read these values right here? Pretty simple. So if we're looking at the liver, I also brought the spine up as an example as well. We might take a look here and we'll say, okay, well, the atlas vertebra in your cervical one, so that's the top bone that sits right underneath your skull, the first vertebra on top of the entire spine. When you see two numbers, that means that you actually have done an initial scan and you have also done an optimize frequencies run, which remember does optimize therapy and it also does a scan at the same time as well. So it's always doing both in the final report. So this means both of those were run. If you just did a scan only and you went to look at your reports, what you would see is you would just see one number, okay, just one set of numbers. Those one set of numbers are just taking a current snapshot of what's going on, in this case, in your different vertebra discs, okay? So again, like you might do that just to see how things are going before you do something therapeutic. After you did something therapeutic, you might run another scan to see if anything has changed. If you did our optimize or you did some of our therapies with our device, you would also want to see how it changed. So let me now describe what these values actually mean. So when you see two numbers, because remember I did the optimize and I did the initial scan, the number inside of the box, the number inside of the box always means your current value or measurement. So in this case, the number to the left was on the previous, so the first scan that we did. So it was at a 7, which is higher than a 5. And this runs on a scale from 1 to 9, with 1 and 9, the ones on the furthest outside, being the most extremely out of balance. And as you move towards the center of 1 to 9, which would be like a 4 and a 5, even a 6 in many respects, but somewhere in between is good to see. That means you're more balanced. So the frequency resonance of that vertebra, for example, is actually conducting nerve sound vibrational frequency through the nervous system that is showing that it is in greater alignment and conductivity with the cervical disc below. Okay, so a 5 is good. It's showing that's really balanced. And we pick colors that are helpful to the eyes, like green. Green is a healing color. Blue's pretty nice too. As you get more to the outliers, like 2 and a 7 or an 8, you get to yellows and you get into reds as well. Reds really stand out to the eye. So we know that if we see a red anywhere, we know that like, that area is maybe really out of balance. So it immediately grabs our attention. Oh, okay, something is going on in this level of the neck right here. You can easily, immediately see it. So again, the one in the box is current, okay? The one to the left would mean that that was on the previous scan, the first scan, before I did something therapeutic, before I ran the optimized frequencies for all of this. After I ran the optimized frequencies, then my value shifted from a 7 and it came more into balance in a 5. Does that make sense? The other, if you don't remember which is which, you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot, is this the first one, is this the after? Usually, usually you can tell because the numbers in the box are usually more often a positive shift. Okay, they usually are a more positive shift. So like we went from an 8 to a 6. This one stayed the same, My liver's having a hard time, I see. Stayed the same. Here's a 1 going to a 3, that's a positive shift. Here we have a 1 going to a 3, same. So if you see something from like a more in balance, a 2 going to more towards the center, if you see that change, that shift to positive, usually that's a sign that you are actually looking at the current right here. You're looking at the previous, before balancing, and and you're looking when it shows positive change, you're looking at, oh, something therapeutic happened there. I ran the optimized frequencies, and that value is now better. Does that make sense? Now, it's sometimes you will see the reverse. I will explain that, going from a 5 to a 3, okay, or like a 4 to a 2. So even though we overall might have a positive average shift here, that doesn't mean that it doesn't automatically imply that every single part of your body is going to go through a positive shift. That's just not how the body works, of course. So the body only has a limited amount of energy resources at any given time. And there's other things that can be chronic or acute, many different things that can interfere with the ability to shift absolutely everything. Of course, if we could shift absolutely everything that easily, people would probably be quite healthy, and there would be a lot of miraculous healing events. It would be commonplace. So overall, the body may say, you know what, I can work on this right here. I can make an improvement, over here, right here. However, because I'm making an improvement here and here and here, because these are the priorities right now for me, because I've actually shifted those values, I'm not able to address some of these other areas here. Okay, I can't address that, or I can't address that. So it's the nice thing about our algorithm is that when we're actually talking back and forth to the body, and we're helping the brain talk to the body, and it's actually determining in real time what is the priority to actually shift. So, in other words, we may have seen that, oh, over here, the thoracic disc is at a 9. That's really out of balance. That might be a priority for the body to take a look at, that thoracic right here. Okay, so that's a little bit how it works. It finds things that are most in dysresonance, are out of alignment, whatever it is, depending on what the value is, and then it will try to address those things firstly. And the body will prioritize that with the immune system, it'll prioritize it with the metabolism, and all those different functions, okay? So overall, if you're just looking at these reports, if we're looking at the comprehensive reports here, then you don't always have to look at every little value. It just depends what kind of information you're looking for. One thing to do to just glance at the different slides of information is you just want to see generally a positive shift right here. So it's good to just see, okay, these are the average percentages of all of these values. So it takes all of that. And we saw that on my previous scan, my first scan, I was 45% away from ideal. So 0% being ideal, perfect. I was 45% away. Okay, after I ran and optimized frequencies and my values changed, I was only 31% away. So it's a pretty good improvement. And of course, that's good for now. And I would like to continue to see that my body is responsive in making that shift on future scans, future optimizations, right? If these values don't really change much right here, that's okay. That just means that out of all the things we worked on in the body, the liver, just at this time, that wasn't necessarily a major priority. There could be many, many, many reasons why this value didn't quite fully shift. But in future sessions, I would hope to see that these values, would be changing, right? We would see some positive shifts. So that's kind of, at a glance, those are almost the most important things to look at, unless you're trying to track something specific, or you're trying to learn something about an area of the body, you want more information. And again, you can do that, especially much easier cross-referencing all the data with the ProScan. So let me see, was there anything else I needed to say about this at all? Not really. We talked about how scores can reverse. Some things can change the same. Overall, we want to see positive shifts here. And that's about it. So if you guys have any questions at all, you feel like I didn't cover anything about scans, please leave your questions in the comments, or you can ask questions directly to me in some other way, or to your upline, and be happy to address them in future videos. Thanks for watching.